Hey everyone, in this one I wanted to cover how you can create a dark mode or other types of custom themes in your application and do that dynamically. So in other words, the user can select dark mode or light mode or a different mode, whichever one you like to do. And I just wanted to show you how I do this because I have seen some other tutorials out there and they do it a different way. So hopefully you'll find it useful as well as an alternative way to do it. The main difference is that in this particular demo we're going to go through how to use styles to achieve it, okay, which is something that I use in my apps and it works really well. So first of all, let's go to our data and let's see how we can sort this out. So what I generally do is to create an options set and I will call it theme, and I will add 3 themes in this one. I will call this light, I will call it dark, and we'll have a third one just to show that it's not just a case of light and dark, you can have your own custom themes as well. Let's call that one blue. Okay, and what I will do then is I will add attributes to each one, to each option, which contains the actual hex codes for the colors that we're going to use. So in this one we're going to say that this is the text color. Okay, it's just going to be a text. I'll add a new attribute. This one's going to be called BG color, and that's going to be a text as well. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll modify the attributes for the light theme, and the background color is going to be a light color, so we'll go for FC, 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 and the text color will be a dark color, so it's going to be 252525, and we'll reverse that for the dark. The background is going to be the 252525 and the text is FC, FC, FC. Okay, we could add ones for the blue one, but for now we'll just stick with those two, just in this example. So if we go back to data types and user, what we'll do then on the user is we'll create a new field and we'll call it theme. And this is then going to be of the type of the option set that we just created. Right, so we've got all that set up. So what we can do now is in the design is start to look at building things out. So let's add a text element. We're just going to do something very basic here at the beginning, just purely just to demonstrate what's going on. So I'll add a couple of text elements. This is using the new responsive engine, by the way. If you're watching this, this is recorded in early May 2022. If you're watching this maybe July, August, September, maybe the responsive engine is out of beta and this is a default option. Otherwise, you're going to have to select to upgrade the page to the new responsive if you want to copy along with this. It doesn't really matter. That's not really what I'm demonstrating here. But the reason that they're displayed as they are is because I've got the page as a column, which is why they're stacked on top of one another. Anyway, so what I'll do with this top one, I will just add some margin at the top. I'll center it and not fixed width. Okay, I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll just say that it's going to be 50% or something along those lines. Okay, and what we'll have to do, need to set its fixed width, and we'll do the same thing on there, set it 6 width, set it to percentage, and we'll just set it to 50%. Okay, and we'll then need to center it as well. Right, so what we'll do is we'll create this one as like a header, so we'll call that as a text header, and we will call this as just a text line, just purely as an example. Right, so we'll get rid of these minimum heights on the text boxes because we don't need it. Maybe set this one as with a margin of 15 or something like that. Right, okay, so what we need to do now is to set the theme on these. So let's just change the title. So we'll just say welcome. Okay, and this one will just say more info. Okay, Right. So at the moment, what I've done, if you look in styles, is I've cleared all the styles out. So there's no default bubble styles in there. So there's nothing to select. Okay. So what I tend to do is I will set the details on the actual element here. So what I'll do is I will say, let's have Nonito just as an example. So set it to Nonito, say 700. I'm going to set that to 24. It's going to be centered. And now then the color. Okay. So the color at the moment is just set to 252525. Now what I want to do now is to save that into a style. Okay, because I want to be able to reuse that again. So what I will do is I will say create a new style. And I will call it standard, no, I'll call it header text center. Okay, I'm spelling everything the American way, by the way, which is a bit unusual for me, but I'll do something that's a bit more universal. So we will create that there. So that's that particular style created. We'll create one here as well. We'll do the same thing with the font, Nonito. Where are we? Did it find it? This time we'll just set it to say 500. And we'll set the font size. Yeah, 14's fine. Okay, we'll leave it as left aligned. Okay, that'll do. So I can then save that as create a new style. And we're going to call this one standard text. So I generally put these standard text left. Okay. Right. So let me check this one. I'm just going to remove the style template. Let's make sure I've done everything I need it to do. No, not quite. So let me change that one. Edit the style. So on here then, this is the style. So I just wanted to set the letter spacing as -1, which I always do for larger fonts. Okay. So now then, this is where we come across the limitation with bubble. You can call it a limitation, call what you like, but it certainly applies when you're trying to do a dynamic custom theming in your application. And that is that bubble doesn't allow you to set dynamic colors on a style. What I'm presuming it's doing in the background is it's generating a CSS file for us with all of the styles that we set in the styles page and their kind of static styling. So in other words, it can't dynamically generate that. That's what I assume is happening. Okay. So the usual way that we'd go around that is simply to sacrifice styling. Okay. So what you would do is you would generally set your styles up, you'd drop it on the page, set the style, remove the style, and that's when then on here, because you can set dynamic data in here to set the color, and then you could set that there, and you have to do that for every element. Okay. There's a couple of real setbacks to that I personally can't live with. Okay, and they're fairly obvious. The first one is if you want to change the font or the size or any of these things here, at some point in the future somebody says don't like the font, I want a different font, you've got to go through every element and change that. And that is going to, you could have an app that's got thousands of elements on there, and in fact if it's a decent sized app you will have thousands of elements on there, and that's going to be some work for you to do. It's going to take a long time. Secondly as well, if you can imagine, as I've already mentioned, on the styles, and again I'm presuming this, but generally the styles get loaded once. So it's one entry, each style is one entry on a style sheet, and then that gets assigned to a class against each element. So it's kind of loaded once. What is happening here when you do it individual on each element is it gets added as a style tag or a style property on each individual element. So it's storing all these things against each element. Now that's going to cause some weight in your HTML. Okay, so there's two issues really that I struggle to live with. Okay, so what's the way around it then? If you don't want to do that and you can't have dynamic colors on styles, what's the way around it? So I'll show you that now. So what I will do is I will just set that back to the style. So I've got both on styles. Okay, so just one thing I missed before I go on actually is in the user, what I want to do as well is to set the default. I want to set a default style, and I'll show you that in a second why I've done that. But let's go into app data, and let's just let me change this. Let's have a look. Theme, I'm going to change that to light to start with, just to set it. We'll set it as a default anyway, but let's just set it. So right, so how do we do this then? So what's the kind of the secret sauce that gets around the limitations that we've got on there? Basically, we use conditionals. So what we do is in conditionals is we say, define a condition. What we say is that when, and the when condition, we have to know it's always going to be true or yes, what we call truthy, okay? Either truthy or yesy, if you want to call it that, that's there all the time, and then we can set that condition knowing it's always true. So for example, let's say I can say that this text is visible, so therefore you're only interested in changing the color if it's visible anyway. So, and then we can say, okay, so then we can scroll down and say the font, where are we, font color, and now you can set it dynamically. So then we can say current users, themes, text color. Okay, there are other properties you can use. This text is visible. What I found is that there can often be like a split second delay, say 100, 200 millisecond delay between it visible and invisible, especially if you're doing single page apps and you're making parts of your app visible and invisible, that there can be a slight delay. And actually, if you do it right, you can actually make it look really nice. That alternatively, let's just clear that, you could use other ones. So you could use, let's have a look. You could use the one that's definitely true all the time and therefore will never change, is what you could do is to say this URL is not empty, because it will never be empty. There'll always be a URL on there, so therefore you can guarantee that that is always true. Okay, so as long as you've got a condition and expression that's based on something that's always going to be true at the point of setting the color, then that's good. The other thing that I would rather use this and say this text is visible is because if you've got other conditionals on an element that says is setting the visibility on and off, is that you've got to make sure that this doesn't kick in until that one's set. So you kind of got to look up and down the conditions to make sure you're putting it in the right place. So probably I would advise to use this URL is not empty, because it will never be empty. Okay, so let's now, I'm going to copy this condition and I'm going to put it on here as well. Paste. Okay, and also I need to do that on the page itself so that we get the background, which is important. So we don't really need a conditional with this because we can set it just here. We don't really need a style. It's a one-off. It's a page. Don't really need a style on the page. So we set it as a flat color, set the dynamic, and we say current users, themes, background color. Okay, so at the moment it's set to a light color on the user. So let's just check that out. Okay, that's okay. And then on the data, if we now change that to a dark color and save, we should see that that's, yes, it has, it's changed it to the dark color. Okay, so that's the way around it if you want to use styles, to keep styles and also make sure that you can set the color dynamically. Okay, now you can apply that to anything. If you want to have custom font sizes or whatever, fonts themselves, you could do the exact same thing. The only potential overhead, I'm not 100% sure whether this is right, is that because you're going to have to set a conditional on every single item, every single element, and that's going to put a kind of a watcher to see if this changes, or look, this will never change. There is a potential for that, but front-end frameworks like the one that Bubble, I know it's its own front-end framework, but if you look at things like Vue and Angular, they can handle sort of hundreds of thousands of watches very, very fast, very performant way. So I assume that Bubble is doing the same thing. I built this now into a fairly big app, and I can't see any real serious performance hits with it. Like I say, the only thing that I spotted was at first I was using the condition which was when this element is visible and there is a slight delay. This one, there's never any delay. It just works because it's never going to change. Whereas the visible changes from particularly swapping groups of items out. Sometimes it can change, right? So obviously the downside is that you do have to do this for every element. On the other hand, if you're doing it the other way without styles, you'd have to do this on every element and set the dynamic color on every element here. So I don't really see that as being an issue. If you want to have these custom themes and dark mode, light mode, blue mode, whatever it is that you want to do, okay, the way that I would tend to do it is I would have another page. I've got one set up called elements template, and what I would do, I'd just have an element of each type that you want to style. So in here I've got the text one, and what I would tend to do is just to say, you wouldn't set the style because you can set that individually depending on what style that you want at the time, but mainly with the conditional on it. And that way, if you're starting a new page or a new thing, you can just grab that, copy and paste it onto the next page, and then that conditional is there. And then obviously within the page, you just copy and paste in those labels anyway, which will then come through with the conditional. And obviously, you know, each type of element has its own style, so you'd obviously have to deal with that as well, but it's not a problem, and it works really, really well. So what I'll do a proper example now of how you would implement this so that the user can set dark and light mode. So we're just going to allow the user to toggle between light and dark mode and watch it change dynamically in front of us. The way I'm going to do that is there is an element called Ionic toggle, okay, and you can get that from plugins under Ionic Elements. It's a Bubble made plugin. Okay, so let's just bob that one up here. Okay, let's just center that. Okay, we'll add a couple of labels, and what I'll do actually is I'll add it into a row group so that they can assign left and right. Just put a little bit of padding either side just so that I can actually get at it. So okay, just let's group theme toggle. Let's drag a text element in there, and let's drag another one. It's done it for me. Right, okay, so that one's right. So let me check this one. This text D needs to go into the group toggle, so I'll just drag that in there. These two have obviously got a minimum height, which I do not want, thank you very much. And okay, let's just set those to 65, 75, whichever way you want to play it, 75. Okay, and this is going to be text light theme, text dark theme, and sorry, that's just my dog growling at her reflection in the TV. So where are we now? Light. So and dark. And what we do, we will do the same thing there, is we will say that we want a standard text left on that one. Okay, and again we need to sort of do the conditional thing, so we're going to copy that, paste. So probably what we should have done is set one up and copied it, but it doesn't matter. Let's put that in there, And let's have a look at the style. The style I want right aligned, so what I would do then is select that one, remove the style, set it to right aligned, and then create a new style and just call that standard text right. Okay, maybe what if I set it to 14? It will do. Okay, let's just give this group a little bit of a margin from the top. Where are we? Let's give it 20. Right, okay, so what we need to do now then is when they click on this, it actually changes the user's setting in the database. So let's have a look on this one. Let me change this to Ionic Toggle select theme, and in here what we need to do is preset status. We need to change it to dynamic so we can pick it up from somewhere. Is that it again? Dynamic status, this is where we need to grab it from the actual user, so we need to set the current user's theme. Right, okay, it needs a truthy, so we can say, right, so because of this, the way that the toggle works is that if it's flicked over to the right, that means it's true or yes. If it's flicked over to the left, it's no. Okay, so what we need to do then is to say the dynamic status is it's true if the current user's theme is dark. Okay, so what we can do there is to say current user's theme is dark. Okay, and that means that it'll be set to yes, and therefore we'll get this setting here. Okay, we can leave everything as it is, and then we don't get a button for start edit workflow, so we've got to do it ourselves. So we go to workflow, and then what we can then say is under elements is an inputs value is changed. We've only got one input value, which is this one, so we'll just add an action, and we will say account is to make changes to the current user, add the field, there's only one, which is theme, and we want to set that to, let's say, dark. Okay, but we only want to do that if the theme, if the selection on the Ionic is yes, because the flick to the, because I'm going to sound like some of Rocky Horror Picture Show now. If it's flicked to the right, it's dark. If it's flicked to the left, it is light. So let's have a look. So we can say that only when this Ionic toggle is checked. Okay, and we'll just copy this one and paste, and we can say light, and only if this Ionic toggle isn't checked. Okay, so then we can change that. Now, because that's set on the user and we've set everything else with the styles and conditionals, I'm just going to check we have set everything with the conditionals. Conditional, 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 and we've set the page. So let's give this a go. Okay, now I don't know what the last setting was actually. It was set to dark. Okay, so we can see that it works. So all we've got to do then is flick it over, light, flick it over, beautiful. Okay, and that's as easy as it can be. And what we can do then on the styles actually is for each one we can set a transition. So let's say we're going to set a transition that when the font color changes, we can sort of say that we want like a 350 duration. We're going to ease it in, and we'll do the same one again on the font color, say 350. Okay, and font color is 350. Okay, in that way, not necessary, but as you start to transition between the two, it just gives that little bit more of a sense of transition, shall we say. And that's it really. So just a quick recap is you use your styles as you would normally do. Oh, actually, there's something that I forgot to mention here that I need to sort of let you know about, is if your app is one that doesn't require a user login, if it's a public facing application, and you still want the user to be able to set these off, okay, that's why I set the default on here to be light. So if you run the app, and I've got the user logged in at the minute, but if the user wasn't logged in, what happens is Bubble take a default user setting, which because we've set that as a default will mean it's a light theme, and store that as a cookie on the user computer. So therefore, when you change to dark and we do a thing such as change the current users to dark, it will do it to the cookie, and you'd have the same effect. So yeah, so it will work as well in the situations where the user isn't actually an active user that gets logged in and everything. So yeah, I hope that this has been useful for you. It's certainly helped me when I've been doing styles and themes in my apps. So please like and subscribe if you got any value from this video. I'll say it again, I've said it before in other videos, if this channel is not monetized, so if you saw an advert, I don't get paid for that. That's just part of the terms and conditions of Google. That until I get 1,000 subscribers, I think it's 1,000, and I can turn the monetization off, they get to show adverts. But listen, have a great day and take it easy, and I'll see you very soon in the next one. Take care. Cheers. Bye now.